Good morning, LinkedIn. Happy Friday, September 6th,
Woo!
the end of a short week here. Feel really short for me. But we're here talking about uh, properties with Matthew Ruxton. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I agree with you. I feel like this is the one, like, maybe for context, for those of you who don't know, we're both in America. But, like, when it comes to, like, Labor Day, like, that one holiday, like, it's the one long weekend that I do not understand. Because, like, it's functionally a terrible time for us to really weekend. Like, we've just come back. Like, I know some schools go back to school, like now, but, like, here in Florida, like, we've already got back to school. I've been in school now for, like, 4 weeks. So like it's weird, like summer's over, but like it's still too hot to do anything. Like I don't really want to go anywhere, and it becomes like you stay home. And then it's a 4 day week, and that's even 5 days worth of work in 4 days now.
Yeah, I could definitely see this being like they find ways to like break up other systems like like the school year or the government calendar or just random reasons. That's a good. What is the process for deciding when the holidays are? That's a good question.
Like there's a bill becomes a law, and then someone signs it. And that's not my knowledge of government politics. Runs about right
Oh
there.
man, I've heard it's supposed to work that way. I haven't seen a whole bunch of that, but anyways, HubSpot properties. We jump on the call. We're like, what are we talking about today? Let's just go look over at the product updates. Always delivers something to talk about. So I'm going to share my screen here because I found something right off the bat that I wanted to chat about. And we might blow right through it, but we could also, spend the whole show on it because we haven't talked about AI very much. Um, and you know what
Yeah,
AI is focused on is your data. So when I
yeah.
see things like summarize contacts directly from global search, uh, sounds cool, right? So instead of reading through this, I'm gonna come over to this screen and basically the global search. They've been doing a ton of work here, and as all these
Mm-hmm.
different teams are doing this work, they're adding in these little, is there a name for that symbol? I don't know, like four
I
pointed
call it like
star.
it's, I prefer it's not a star. That's the thing, like, 'cause a star has 5 points in my head. So, like, it's like
Right.
a square with, issues. I don't know. Like, it's like the black hole. I don't know. Everyone's adopting that, though, as like the de facto AI thing. I've noticed, like, even like Google started doing it. Like, everywhere I go, like, AI is like, it's magic, which I'm like, I don't know how I feel about calling AI magic. It's not magic. It can't tell me how many R's are in strawberry, so I don't consider it that great.
Yeah.
But it has
So
its, but yeah,
So we're seeing a lot of these functionalities, and we're expecting a nice polished presentation of all of these good things at Inbound. But
yeah,
here's what that's talking about, the summarize button. And when you click on it, it brings you over to this screen. I'm gonna switch to my version of Matthew's record. And so we've got this stuff bolded here. Uh, and all of this stuff is relating to properties on the record generally.
yeah.
And then we see like, some activity feed, like created from a meeting, no additional notes for this contact, which tells me it's looking for notes, like actual notes, right, on the record. Um, but I know there's more to the story here. But what concerns me is these meetings all down here without meeting names and attendees and dates, knowing that at sometimes, Google Meets, integrate. And lo and behold, when we ask a question here, open chat spot to ask any follow-up questions. Um, and you can see I already did this, but I just asked, what else? What else can you tell me? knowing that there's more information on the record. So what we're seeing, and he repeats the same thing. And what I'm looking for is when I see these 7 engagements and I click on them, you see these meetings, uh, and or no, here's what I did. Right, depending on where it's looking, it gives me very, very little information, right? And when I
Yeah.
hit associated engagements, it breaks it down. Like, oh, these are all Let's Build episodes. So maybe when I ask for more information, you could tell me, hey, you've had a bunch of meetings with Matt about Let's Build. That must be something that you and Matt do regularly, And like, why aren't we seeing that stuff? Have you experienced any of these AI tools like in this way? And what are you
I think
thinking
there's
about AI?
lots of thoughts about AI. I definitely think that I've gone from being like horrendously scared of it and being a naysayer to seeing its value to now kind of like, how do I kind of like calling back to inbound last year, when Yamini stood up and say, talked about AI, is AI is not going to replace you to make your job, give you a different job and give you a better job. Um, I'm trying to find ways to introduce AI to the people that I work with and in my own job in a way that does not make them feel like and they should be gaining time. They should be able to do more of the things that they care about and less the things that just suck their time. And I think there's something to be said about like AI is only as good as the data set you provide it. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused with like AI, unfortunately, has become the buzzword in the last like 8 to 10 months that now everything has AI. The other day I was at a meeting, and you were like, yeah, this camera has AI. And they proceed to talk about how it becomes like facial detection. And I'm like, that's not the same thing. We're not using AI as this broad term for like the computer can think. And that's not, I think, how we should think about AI. I think we should think of AI as like these large language models that they are. ChatSpot essentially is pulling from the large language model that is your database. I think it makes it very clear that we need to focus our time on data quality, data cleanliness, data integrity. Because if you're not doing that now, you will get zero benefit from any of these tools. Because all they're going to surface your bad data, and not be able to make, very informed decision making. And I think to some extent, what you should take a prime example of that if you have people using the CRM and they're not using some of the functionality well or effectively, you don't get the benefit of it. Like if you're not using meetings or you're not recording, and maybe you're using meetings, and that's fair. Like people connect with calendar all the time, and their meetings show up at HubSpot. But if you're not actually making the time to go to like the meetings objects or the meetings records, I should say, and setting your outcome, setting your attendees, setting your meeting type, putting in notes there. If you're not doing that stuff, like HubSpot is gonna be able to tell you you had a meeting, and guess what? Google Calendar can do. So it's not. I think there's a certain amount of like you have to enrich your data effectively for AI to work effectively for you. I think that's where a lot of people are like, AI's not working for me. Like, well, your data's not enriched effectively.
Right. And that's why, like, when all these things get delivered and it's like, oh, you can summarize, you can do this, you can do this, it will do this
Mhm.
for you. And it's like, we forgot about all these initial steps, that since those aren't done. And as you're talking about it, like we talked about last week, and there's a lot of buzz about all the workarounds that people are having to, walk back from. And this should be, in theory, a good carrot because I'm sure that if some of those things stay as the workarounds that they are, you will not
Yeah,
be able to leverage the new AI tools that are built based on the new way of doing things in HubSpot.
yeah. It's all in the management of data, which is ironic because I mean, I feel like every time we talk, we can go on like a really random tangent and somehow always end up back at property. But I think it's true. I think there's a certain thing to be said about how if you don't get the building blocks right at the beginning, none of these build-ons and add-ons that give HubSpot a lot of value and give you a lot of access to data if you've never been able to access it before will just not work. And I think that that's something to keep in mind as you go through the process of, if you're starting in a CRM for the first time, sorry, starting in HubSpot for the first time where you're coming in, like you just bought it you're taking off the cling wrap, and you're starting to set up, you got to think about the long-term goal. And it's hard. Like, I don't think that no one can be perfect at it, but I think realizing, when is a good time to make changes? When is a good time to say, oh, hey, we built this property, but actually this property should have been this type. Like, we built a single line text and it should have been a drop down, or we built a single line text and it should have been a primary key, or, allow only unique values. When are you making those calls, and are you just writing it down and saying, I'll get to it at some point? Because every day you're adding more data. There's more data you're going to go back and fix. If you catch them early and fix them early, your data becomes so much more manageable later on. And I think that that's kind of wild and kind of almost a really good way to segue into the private beta I don't think either of us are in, but really want to be in, which is inline editing on association tables.
Yeah. Let's bring that up here. So inline editing on association tables. This is where, like, leading up to this, like, I can make an associated record property card where I can edit the stuff. But then I make one that looks a lot like it and I can't edit it there.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it's like, obviously there's infrastructure that is being created to support these two different cards, but when we put these kinds of similar experiences and similar views right next to each other and then they behave a little differently, that's usually a big load of feedback coming HubSpot's way when those situations
Yeah.
occur. So
And I
what,
think a lot
like,
of the interesting thing about this to me is that this is and I think we talked about this like 2 weeks ago, if I'm not correct, which is we were talking about like, something that I've gone through recently is, had that conversation with myself where I'm building my records for my end users for the most part. Like, I'm like, hey, I want my CSMs to live on companies, or I want my search people to live on tickets. And I want to try and eliminate the need for them to move away from that core object as much as possible. I think that's true with what we had with association property cards. This specifically, I think, is more targeted towards people who are in middle management, people like your CSM, your customer success managers of CSM, who are like, hey, I want to look at, let's say, your parent and child companies. I want to go to a parent company and be able to see all the child companies, and then also go ahead and edit the child companies in one fell swoop.
oh
You can't do
man,
that today on the index page. It's coming, but you can't do it on the index page today. You can do it though now on the record. And I think that is
that's
a
huge.
huge asset.
I'm like
Huge.
tears are
But
coming into my eyes thinking about that case specifically. Like, wow,
yeah,
helping people, like making
but
it easier to edit child companies from the parent company
and being able
record.
to like preset filters. Like, I think that's
Yeah,
huge, which is like, I think there's people undervalue the power of tab in the center card. There's as many tabs as you want. And the thing people don't realize is you have many tabs. And then on top of that, you can also customize which teams, if you're doing teams right, which teams see those tabs. You can say, I want to have a view for my customer success managers, and I want to have a view for my customer success like leaders, and I want to have a view for my director of customer success. And those don't have to be the same. You can say, like, I want to be able to see all, like, like a CSM, and I'm harping on CSMs a lot right now just because that's what my brain's sitting in. But, if I'm an individual contributor, I may have different needs than someone who's a manager, but we're all using the same data. How do I make sure that I can marry that experience for everyone across multiple organizational levels? I think it's,
yeah, and I think it's fair to focus on that role because that's been probably the most underserved role, in my opinion, when they're used to having to work with everything in the context of a deal or a ticket, which are owned by like other teams. And it's like, how do we create the spaces for them? Now it's becoming easier and easier. Um, so this is super, super exciting. And obviously,
it's
I'm
becoming
sure,
easier.
yeah, like as they build it out, and we keep hearing like they're trying to unify the whole experience based on whatever it is you're doing. So this looks a lot like how it works over on the index,
Yeah.
screens, right? Um, so super cool. Why is it private?
And the cool thing about it is I don't think people realize you can set these up with conditional filters. Like it's not just like show me all deals or show me all companies that are associated. You can say show me deals that are associated with this school
Yeah,
year, or show me deals that are in this stage only, or show me, like you can even filters, you can go mad at filters, but you can set that up and you can even do it based on association label. Like we have that right now. Like we do this a lot with our contacts and companies where we say like, hey, show me contacts in this list that are for our points of contact for our support team. So they don't have to go through a list of 80 contacts. They only can see the first five that they actually care about. And if they're like, man, my email address is wrong, or hey, my phone number is wrong, or hey, you're going to ship me something and my address is wrong, you can make that change in line in the ticket. That is huge.
yeah.
Hmm.
And this is where you start to, like, as you see these drop downs, as you see how everything's built out. Well, I mentioned the reason they get feedback on this stuff is because it looks just like this other thing. I can't do it like that. They're moving very quickly
Yeah,
towards that feature where wherever you see something, and if it's got a filter over here, it's going to act like the other places that also have these filters, which is super cool.
right. 100%. I think it is a good move. And to some extent, I think I think I said this a couple weeks ago, is like, I think we're seeing the death of the association sidebar very slowly. With these new changes to that integration panel. Because I think for a long time, people used to complain that like HubSpot was a tool of three columns. And, you had this like center useless column for a long time that were just activities. It was like your emails, your notes, your meetings. And now it's becoming this like usable space that you can display more meaningful data, and marry more data from a more unified query. Like that right sidebar, I'm not gonna lie, I have users right now who do not have their sidebars open. It's
Mm-hmm.
switching flat because there's nothing on the sidebar that they need right now. Not true for everyone because they're not there everywhere. Like there's things like invoices and stuff like that that we prevented that a little bit in some places, but like attachments moving to becoming a property versus being just this like attachment like bucket. Is a great example of that. I think there's a certain push right now to make HubSpot much more actionable on a day-to-day basis and really remove any friction that people have had with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like a lot of that friction has come from this expansion into what you're using HubSpot for. So, like, that right sidebar just becomes like a doom scroll, like to get to anything that you're looking for. And it's very hard to, uh, you know, the center panel makes it much easier to curate the data
Hmm.
versus having this right sidebar that you can only have for a property. Like literally, you just don't have the space to be able to do more than what
You
they're
don't
doing
have the
with it,
space.
which
And
causes,
if you're a heavy user of things like tickets, like it's really easy for you to have 300 plus tickets on that right sidebar. And you're
Mhm.
like, I don't even, if you're like, yeah, but you get the last five, and I'm like, that's great. But if you're having people submit tickets daily, it for like internally inside your business for business work on top of customers, like that buries so quickly. Being able to say, hey, I
Yeah,
just want to see tickets that are this team, or I want to see tickets that are this team, or I want to see tickets that are this team, or I want to see open tickets from this team. Like, being able to specify that in that center card makes it so much easier for you guys to look and, have a holistic view of a customer. And again, we're moving to this model where Hustle is trying to position itself, take down from, I don't say take down, but like replace your need for things like Zendesk, replace your need for things like Churn Zero, replace your need for these larger dormant CSS tools and bring it into the CRM where you can then pull it on a greater level. Um, and
yeah,
I'm
because
excited for that because I think there's a huge push now for that. Like I've always been team CS because I think that's where when your roots are CS, like you advocate for that team more than anything else. I love our salespeople. That don't get me wrong, like salespeople do a great job, but the underserved and underloved CS team needs a little love, and I'm really happy to see that they're getting big beefy features that will make their life easier. That in turn, guess what, generate more sales because I will. So,
yeah,
I think
well, that or the
it's a really
initiatives
good move.
that come
Yeah,
down that are like from the sales team. Somehow they're responsible for it, but it's like resell, upsell, cross sell. Like, guess where that's coming
yeah,
from? Or worst case scenario, maybe not worst case, but what I've seen is like, okay, CS team, you've never been in charge of any kind of revenue activity before, but now you have a revenue number and but you're not in sales, so you don't look at any of this from close. It's just like we got to bring all this together and say that this team is closer to the customers at this point, and they're well positioned to say, "Hey, sales, we got something here. Like, got fish on the line.
Yeah.
Like, let's close them quickly, without any judgment being passed back and forth." Um, but yeah, there's been a lot of stuff there, and like, how long have we heard? Like, for the life of HubSpot, actually, it's like your easiest path to revenue is to your customers.
Yeah.
Yet we've been very focused on lead management and new logo acquisition. Um, Another thing you mentioned being excited for, uh, export approvals. I think that's fair
There's no
game.
way.
We're
I
gonna
was like,
make
I
it
wonder
fair
how he's
game.
gonna segue into export approval from what we're talking about. I think that it's like something data integrity, something exports. I think one of those things is it's very niche for me. I'm sure there's a lot of admins and consultants and coaches and people like that feel the same way, which is it was very reactive when you again. I had this happen in the past 6 months where I got a notification from HubSpot saying, "Hey, someone just exported 10,000 contact records," and I'm like, "Great, they've already done it." So if you don't get that notification or the email in the moment, you have like a 3-minute window where you can stop it. But like if that's already passed and that would happen, like and literally it would crack up. I think by default that goes to like every super admin. And then most like companies like even if someone in like leadership is a super admin and they'll like message me 3 hours later like, "Did you stop this?" And I'm like, "Well, yes." But it's a prime example of that, which is being able to, and I love the way they broke this up, which is like people who you trust to X for, and I think that like for a lot of people that is going to be people like in senior leadership roles. But being able to say, hey, this person approved this person's export. And then to some extent, I believe you also have the ability, because I think we have this today. Let me double check. I think we have this data already on, so I might be able to
And
show it a little bit in real time.
I think
But
what took me a few seconds to figure out is like how this could relate to the like any bad habits of just like as we're talking about data and like the importance of the integrity, like how often are people they choose to export something because they don't like the way they have to do it inside of the system. So it's like, oh, just let me get into a spreadsheet and then I can manage it easier, right? And fix all my
yeah,
problems outside of HubSpot, and then perpetually have to do that because now it's never fixed in HubSpot, right? So getting in the way of that, most of the times when I've talked about this before, it's like, okay, it's always like from a liability perspective, and we don't want people. So it's a yes, no. But then when it comes to like just enablement of our team that we trust, we like with less options, it's like, okay, we'll just let them, like, we don't want to impede their progress. So they'll have export access. Um, but this is a good way to say okay, at least understand every time, why you need to export that. Like, let's talk about it,
yeah.
right? So you got something to show?
I was looking to make sure because I don't have it turned. I have the beta on, but I don't have it turned on yet for anyone because they get some approvals for that. But
Okay.
I was double checking what I was about to say, which was I believe you can set a threshold, which is correct. You can set a threshold when approval is required for an export, which I think is important too. Like if you're someone who's doing exports because they're having to pull data out of the CRM because they have to go into another tool that doesn't connect with your CRM, which happens. I know it's not the best practice, but we've all worked with tools where that just isn't a possibility to move it from HubSpot to your other tool. Um, you have the ability to set that threshold and say like, if it's below 100, I don't care. But if it's above 100, I need to be notified of it. And I think that's super important with things like sales teams and not that like the leading, I didn't say it, like the leading defender of mass export on departure are angry sales members leaving the organization for whatever reason, whether they're angry because they're choosing to leave or angry because they're being told to leave. But I think this is huge from an administration perspective because I think that previously exports is like you had it or you didn't. You need to trust people that had it for the right reasons and would do it with the right reasons. Um, Being able to say like, hey, you can export, but I need you to do it. Someone needs to approve your export. I think is a really, really important thing. And I think I need the same thing for imports now, where like I can have like people are allowed to import, but can submit imports through like if they could just stage an import and not actually hit the button, that would be wonderful.
Oh my
Because there's
gosh.
people in my organization right now that I follow the stagger, they're doing imports all day, every day, and I'm like, please stop. Like you need a minute, and like I got to turn it off, and they just get angry when I turn it off. So I'm like, and I don't also want me to do it. I think that's the biggest admin thing is like the first line of defense and you when you have something processed that you don't trust people to do correctly, and you're just like, you don't get to do it. I have to do it.
Hey,
And if you're anyone like myself, you don't want to do it as an admin. Like you don't
right.
want to spend your day doing imports every 3 hours. Like it's just not the time you have other projects you want to work on. You have other strategic goals you're involved in. So I think layering in that sort of level of control is huge. And I'm glad that we're moving that way because I think it's really beefing up the permission set outside of this object, an actual CRM permission.
Yeah. No, it's like the right balance of control with like chance for empowerment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's lots of good actors out there that we want to support and not get in the way.
Try not to have a negative ad. I try to pretend I love all my users and that they all do things in the best interest. And I will say, I think you will always encounter people who don't have your interests or the company's interests in mind. I think that's the world we live in. But being able to put these like have some like peace of mind protections in place, I think make a huge difference to people because I know previously exports have been one of the things you're like, I don't know if I want, this person needs it for something, but like, do they need it all the time? And you also don't want to go in and like turn off.
Right. What are you looking for coming out of inbound? That'd be a good topic
Oh,
to end on today.
oh man. I will say I'm very bummed I'm not going inbound this year. It's just that it was on my card for me this year, and I'm sad. And I'm more sad, I think, because there's a lot of people I want to see inbound this year. And I'm like, man, and thankfully, like those are stream things. But I and like I'm really bummed. I don't think Kyle's session is streamed. I know it was recorded last year, but I don't think it was streamed in real time.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think it is either.
Um, because like I love Kyle sessions, but I think I'm really excited to see this sort of. I'm really hoping that they solidify the whole everything's an object mentality. I think I really want to see the CRM platform, like the customer platform, take center stage. I think we started to see that last year. I think we'll see it more this year. I think it's going to be a mix of that with AI. I don't think AI is going to be as big this year. I think AI last year was the year of AI. I
Oh
think this
man,
year is going to be
that's a bold
hopefully
call.
not. Right? See how that plays out for me. But I really hope, like, just based with the conversation I've had with like product managers and researchers recently with HubSpot, they are definitely investing the time in the customer platform, and that is where they are spending a lot of their time and effort and money is in improving and solidifying the customer platform. Because I think they see that when you look at their number one competitor, which is Salesforce, Salesforce hasn't innovated in customer platform for a long time. Their new thing is like, cool, we have AI now, and like everyone has AI. Like to the point now where when people say I have AI, I'm like, it's an expected thing at this point. I don't think it's not a shiny new thing.
Yeah.
I think there's a certain amount of each end that like HubSpot taking the time to actually look at customer platform as part of their business and making it a core of everything. If they announce that at inbound, I will cry. I'm like, that's the thing I'm expecting to hear the most about. But
Yeah. No,
hopefully,
there's
and just like speaking it, like, and I do that thing where you look at like the who's speaking and who's presenting at inbound, and you can think about like, okay, well, who's presenting and like what are they talking about? So it usually gives you a good idea of what the conversation is about. And I know they sometimes hold off on events till like after the keynote, like they drop a bunch more events. If there's like events they would tell you about what's happening, like for example, like the CRM, I know last year, like the React Center Cards session did not show up until after they announced it at at
right.
the keynote. But I think there's a lot to be said about, I think I think it's going to be the unified customer experience. I think that's going to be the theme. I hope, which I'm bummed
It
about. 'Cause I'd
definitely
love to be
is.
there for that, but I think
there's
that's the direction that we're heading.
yeah, there's definitely a bunch of admin, data, cleanliness, focused sessions. And I'll just say like I hope I get his name right. I'm pretty sure Matt Sorensen, that the founder of Clearbit, his
Mm-hmm.
name is all over the schedule. Like I don't know if he has any downtime at all, which means heavy AI data enrichment, integrity, all that
Yeah,
stuff. Like, and I'm here for it. And it's like, if you think through it, it makes a lot of sense because it doesn't matter how smart the CRM is if
yeah,
it can be used in dumb ways, and the users make it dumb, right? Because then none of the hubs work, right? Like none of the cool stuff on top works well. So, kind of taking a step back, uh, last year obviously focused like riding that wave of, you know, there was a little bit of like the way that they went about it. I think there was some first mover like advantage of like how like no, we're bought in right now. We're investing right now. This is going to be a new layer of the entire platform. We're not going to try and pick and choose, uh, and we're going to learn immediately. And now it's like what they've learned over the last year. It's like here's all the stuff that people need help with to make sure all this cool stuff works. I get a lot of that vibe. So that is
yeah.
gonna be cool. And yeah, man, we should do more of these where it's just like, I guess I see why all the other people just roll through updates sometimes. It just
Yeah, I
makes
mean,
it
there's a lot
easier.
to
There's
talk
always
about.
something
It's
to
so
talk
much to
about.
unpack.
Yeah. And this is the
So
stuff,
much to unpack.
honestly, like, it's hard to keep up with. So if you guys liked it and, want to see more of it, we're happy to do it. And we'll always there's always a way to tie it back to properties, guarantee it. So yeah, man. So until next week, what do we want them to think about? Where are they finding opportunities? Think about like just when you see these AI buttons everywhere, just try to ask a couple questions after you click the button. Like, is this what I expect to see? If not, why not? Try to,
I'll tell you, like, if you have end users and you have a good relationship with some end users, like, if you've picked we just went through this process at my company where we picked out, like, people in each team, be kind of like our ambassadors to HubSpot, for their team. And, like, I've said to them, they're the people that I call on the most. And I'm like, I know what I think is cool. And I feel like I'm pretty connected to what you guys do, but, like, you guys do it. So, like, you have a better understanding than I will ever have. Like, if you use this tool, I think this tool is freaking awesome, but you tell me how you're going to do it in your day-to-day experience. And I think that's, with AI, I think that's something you have to do there. You have to, like, that's any takeaway from today. It's like, you're going to use AI, you're going to take advantage of the AI that's inside of your HubSpot portal that you're already paying for. You know, have your team use it and have them ask questions to it and see what the feedback is. And then that will help drive, like, what data you are storing.
and how you store it and how it's used for the next steps. So yeah, as you see those summarize buttons, these AI buttons show up, think about opportunities for questions you should be asking as you engage with that stuff. Find the opportunities and let's grow. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Take care, everyone.